Look in the mirror. Really look. Do you recognize the person staring back? Or is there a stranger lurking behind your eyes? A version of yourself you try to keep locked away? This isn't a fantasy. It's a psychological reality. And the man who mapped this inner world, Carl Jung, didn't just uncover theories. He uncovered landmines. Warning signs that, if ignored, don't just lead to a bad day. They lead to a life of quiet desperation, self-sabotage, and collapse. This is not about pop psychology. This is about the unvarnished truth of what happens when you refuse to see what's already there. Most people live on the surface. They deal with what's in front of them. The job, the bills, the daily grind. They never consider that beneath that surface is an entire world, a hidden geography of the self. Jung was a cartographer of that inner world. He gave names to the forces we all feel but can't describe. And the most critical thing he taught us is this. Ignorance of this inner world is not bliss. It is a liability. You can be highly successful, admired, powerful, and be completely owned by the unconscious parts of your own psyche. The warning signs are not loud. They're quiet. They're subtle. They show up in your patterns, your reactions, your private thoughts. Learning to see them is the difference between being the author of your life and just being a character in a story you don't understand. The first and most dangerous sign is the emergence of the shadow. This isn't a monster. It's simply the part of your personality you repress. The anger, the selfishness, the pride, the laziness, the primal urges you've been taught are unacceptable. You don't get rid of them. You just stuff them into a bag and drag it behind you every single day. The danger isn't that the shadow exists. The danger is when you refuse to acknowledge it. Because that bag gets heavier. And eventually, it starts to move on its own. You see it in the man who claims to be peaceful but has uncontrollable fits of road rage. The executive who preaches ethics but secretly delights in sabotaging a colleague. That sudden, out-of-character cruelty that shocks even you. The harsh word to a loved one. The petty revenge on a stranger. That's not a random event. That's your shadow, demanding to be heard. It's a civil war, and you're on both sides. If you don't confront it consciously, it will confront you destructively. It will project itself onto others. You'll see your own greed in your competitor, your own laziness in your employee, your own anger in your partner. You'll think you're fighting them, but you're really fighting yourself. The shadow gains its power through neglect. The first step to disarming it is to turn and face it. To say, this too is me. The second warning sign is more seductive, and in many ways, more perilous, psychological inflation. This is when you identify with a role so completely that you lose all sense of yourself. You are not a man who is a CEO. You are the CEO. You are not a man with strength. You are the alpha, the provider, the intellectual, the hero. You wear this mask so well you forget it's a mask. You start to believe the hype. You become godlike, infallible, beyond criticism. This is a trap. The persona, the mask, is meant to be a tool for navigating the world. It is not who you are. It's what you do. When you inflate, you become brittle, hollow. Any threat to that identity feels like a threat to your very existence. This is why the most arrogant men often have the most fragile egos. One piece of critical feedback, one professional failure, one challenge to their authority doesn't just bruise their ego. It shatters their entire reality. You see this in the fallen celebrity, the disgraced politician, the retired athlete who has no idea who he is without the game. The persona becomes a prison. You're performing a version of yourself that you think the world demands, and the effort is exhausting. The fall from inflation is not a step down. It's a crash. And it's inevitable, because no one can live up to a fiction forever. And this crash leads directly to the third warning sign, Enantiodromia. A complex word for a simple, brutal phenomenon, the swing to the opposite. It's a fundamental law of the psyche. When you push any part of yourself too far into the extreme, the unconscious psyche will violently correct course. It's the universe restoring balance, and it is rarely gentle. The workaholic who preached discipline for decades suddenly abandons his family and responsibilities to chase a frivolous fantasy. The stoic, emotionally controlled man has a sudden, messy public breakdown over a minor inconvenience. The ultra-rationalist scientist falls for an absurd conspiracy theory. The priest is caught in a scandal. This isn't just hypocrisy or failure. It's rebellion. The parts of yourself you starved and locked away, the need for play, for emotion, for imagination, for transgression, they don't die. They gather strength in the darkness. And when they have enough, they kick the door down. The pendulum doesn't just return to the center. It swings to the opposite extreme with equal force. The very thing you fought so hard to build becomes the thing that destroys you. Your greatest strength becomes your ultimate weakness. Enantiodromia is the psyche's way of forcing a balance you refuse to create yourself. But the inner world isn't just filled with enemies and masks. There's another force, and misunderstanding it is the fourth warning sign. For a man, this is the anima, the inner feminine. It's not about being less of a man. It's about the repressed parts of human experience, connection, intuition, emotion, creativity, the capacity for relatedness. When a man is completely identified with logic, power, and action, he cuts himself off from this vital energy. The warning sign here is a life that feels sterile. Hollow victories. A feeling of being disconnected from everyone around you, even in a crowd. You can win the boardroom, but lose your family. You can acquire wealth, but have no capacity to enjoy it. You might find yourself inexplicably drawn to, or obsessed with, a woman who seems to embody everything you lack. Not for who she is, but for what she represents to your own unconscious. This is called projection. You're placing your own inner life onto an external person, and that never ends well. The goal isn't to become feminine. The goal is to integrate that energy, to become a whole man, who can be both decisive and compassionate, both strong and empathetic, both logical and intuitive. A man who can build and also connect. These signs, the unintegrated shadow, the inflated persona, the violent swing of Enantiodromia, the ignored anima, are not a checklist of mental illnesses. They are human processes. They become dangerous when they operate in the dark, when we are too proud, too afraid, or too unaware to bring a light into those corners of ourselves. This isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about having the raw courage to see what's already there, to acknowledge the stranger within, to take off the mask before it fuses to your skin, to understand that every extreme contains the seed of its own opposite. The work isn't to eliminate these forces. The work is to stop pretending they don't exist. The most dangerous thing you can do is to assume you are not in danger. The path to wholeness begins the moment you realize you are at war with yourself, and the first step toward peace is to cease fire and start negotiating. It requires a ruthless inventory of the self, not to condemn, but to understand. Because what you refuse to see, you will inevitably be ruled by. And the bill for ignoring these warnings always comes due. The question is, will you be the one holding the pen when it arrives, or will you be blindsided by a debt you pretended you never owed? The work is hard. It's uncomfortable. It's a continuous process of paying attention,